Well, joining us on this edition of the News Review, we have former member of British Parliament, Lembit Opik, who's joining us on the line from the British capital, London. We also have Keith Pilbeam, Professor of International Economics and Finance from City University, joining us from London. Welcome to the program. Let's start off with Mr. Pilbeam. Sir, how alarming are these numbers?
Well, when you're expecting lower figures, then of course it's not as good as it could have been. It's only 0.2% above what was expected, but the point is inflation is not coming down, and that's what is alarming, because it means living standards are going to continue to get eroded. Because one thing we can be sure of very clearly, in Brexit Britain, wages are not going to keep up with prices. That is what Brexit meant to the British. Tight labour market doesn't make any difference. The cake is getting smaller, and you can only divide it up. So, wages can only go better more than prices when you've got a prosperous economy. Public finances are dire, so the situation is really bad. And there's nothing the government can do about it. The Bank of England has been incompetent to the highest order. I mean, a governor that has an inflation target of 2% ends up with 11.1. Way over target. All their forecasts are proved wrong. So it's complete failure of the British economy. The leadership has been atrocious. There's no question about the incompetence. We've got a Prime Minister who believes Brexit is a good thing. I mean, you just cannot make out. Yeah, he dresses smarter than Boris, but at the end of the day, he actually believes Brexit is a good thing for this British economy. It's clearly not reflected in the health of the British economy. Living standards will continue to plummet. Dynamism of the British economy has been destroyed.
Let's cross over to Lembit Opik, who's with us on the line from the British capital, London. Mr. Opik, the inflation rate was expected to slide down to 8.4% last month, with the Bank of England lifting borrowing costs to a 15-year high. That did not happen. What's not clicking here?
What's not clicking is any kind of coherent government policy when it comes to the economy. Liz Truss, who was the Prime Minister for 44 days, managed to destroy the economy faster than anyone in British political history. And as a result of that, we now got a situation where nobody's really in control of the economy. Secondly, we have a massive disrespect for politics amongst the workers. We have continuous strikes. It's like living in an ongoing general strike. That in itself is causing harm to the economy. And the third most important thing is there's no clear strategy to get out of it. The Conservatives don't know what to do, and I'm sure the Labour Party can't do anything about it much either. So what we now have is a country isolated from the rest of the European Union, a country which doesn't really have any economic leadership, and a country that can't expect anything to get better after the next general election. So what's gone wrong is a failure of political leadership, and there is no evidence that anyone can recover this anytime soon.
Mr. Opik, how bad is Brexit hurting Britain right now?
Very badly. Brexit could have been made to work. I'm not going to waste time talking about the benefits or the harm that Brexit would have done in terms of the referendum. But once the referendum was passed, all politicians had a responsibility to make Brexit work. They failed. The Brexiteers did not notice little things like the fact that if you spend more than 50% of your time in the European Union in any 6-month period, you're actually breaking the law. Most people probably who are listening don't realize that. Second example is that there are terrible tariffs. People are quietly moving. They're trading, they're manufacturing out of the UK into the EU. Whether they like the EU or not, they just don't want to pay the tariffs. So we've got this problem. Now, I happen to be a dual citizen. I've got European citizenship also, so I can travel. But the UK is desperate to get inward investment, relocation into the UK. They could do it, but then the government has to step up. It has to improve the visa system. It has to improve the tax thresholds, for example, for relocation into the country. It's not even doing simple things like that. Yesterday, I was in a meeting of the all-party relocation group, and there are 8 or 9 things that the government could do just to make it more attractive to invest in the UK. They're not really doing any of them. So at this point, the government's going to be tested.
All right, and Mr. Pilbeam, one last question for you before we wrap up this segment of the show. What's next for the government of Prime Minister Rishi Sunak?
Well, there's no way out of this mess now. Mortgage rates are going up because inflation is stubborn. So homeowners are, going to face affordability issues. There's basically too much bureaucracy in this country created by Brexit, which just adds to costs, delays. The Johnson government, the bad Brexit deal they brought on this country has been delays, queues, and of course people are sitting in lorries and you've got to charge for that. And red tape and vets that have it to certify all these things that are exported now. The costs are enormous. So we've got record employment, but how many of these people are just bureaucrats, customs officials that aren't actually producing goods and services? In fact, they're just adding to the cost of goods and services. So it's a failure of the British system of epic precautions. And now, of course, the person that caused all these problems, yes, one Boris Johnson, is now, detested by virtually everyone in the country, apart from a few 7 supporters in the House of Parliament. So what a disgrace that this country came to because of one individual that supported a thing that he actually didn't even believe in the first place.
All right, thanks a lot, gentlemen. Keith Pilbeam, Professor of International Economics and Finance at City University, joining us from the British capital, London. Also joining us on the line from London, former Member of British Parliament, Lembit Opik. And with that, it brings us to an end here on this segment of Press TV's News Review. But there's plenty more to come here on Press TV. Stick around.